they run a model that says we created the direct jobs, but we also created indirect jobs, which is, in theory, if my construction worker now goes to McDonald's nearby and eats, I, as a regional center head, I can count the 20 jobs of McDonald's into
Mm.
the equation of job creation in theory, very simplistically put it.
Tim is one of the most authentic and genuine people I've ever met.
Sincerely believe he's coming from a position of giving, and that means a lot.
You're going to make huge progress.
Welcome everybody to today's Capital Raising Show. I'm your host Tim Mai, and today I have an awesome guest on the line with us, Hemal Badiani. Is the Chief Executive Officer at Exponential Equity. Hemal is responsible for overall strategy and vision at Exponential Equity and ensuring that it aligns its mission with the company to transform lives through real estate. And as the CEO, Hemal leads the firm growth strategy into new markets, new asset classes, and he is also accountable for hiring and marketing strategy for the firm. Not only are they into multifamily, they've gotten into new development, and Hemal also recently acquired an EB5 regional center as well. So,
Correct.
yeah, we're going to talk a lot about EB5 today, and he accomplished all of this in the last 4 years. Acquire over $160 million assets, raise over $43 million. That's an amazing track record. And so with that, let's welcome Hemal real quick. Woo-hoo!
All right. Thank you. Thank you. This is an amazing group. And first of all, thank you, Tim. The work that you're doing here provides tremendous value, bringing like-minded people together, and kind of helping them in their whatever journey they are from a capital raising perspective. So I really appreciate you, man. And thanks for inviting me.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, so first things first, we changed names to Sage Equity.
Okay.
We are based in Charlotte, North Carolina. Carolinas is our backyard. We have 4 divisions within the company. And I'll give you a 2-minute background on why and how. But we have a multifamily acquisitions division where we own close to 1,000 units, mostly in the Carolinas. We have a new ground up development construction division where we've got 85 million in construction going on. We have a land entitlement company, which is increasing the density of raw land or residential land to build multifamily or higher density products. And then we bought this amazing company that allows us to do certain things strategically here, which I'll talk about. And so our focus has been over the last few months as the little thing called inflation has pivoted us into, we can't do the classic buy anymore, right? The cost of borrowing, as you all know, and preaching to the choir here, cost of borrowing has increased for anything you want to do, renovations, capex, new development, etc. So our focus has been, while we continue to sharpen our pencil and whatever we do, whether it's operational elements and reducing the expenses, or the construction arm with strategic partnership with material sourcing and all the stuff, at some point that lever is going to run out. And so the other lever we have is bringing in cheaper capital. And then we have a variety of things in our toolkit, with buying raw land and the low cost basis that we can get there, to grants that are specific to the city of Charlotte, to a preferred equity type of fund that we're putting forward. And obviously the topic du jour is this company that we bought that allows us to create a win-win situation for international or even residents here in the United States and their families, us as developers to bring in cheap capital, and the US government, and we'll talk about that. So let me pause there, Tim, so if there are any places you want to go into, I'm happy to dive into that.
Yeah, definitely. We'll dive into all of it. Actually,
all right.
Yeah. And so I guess if you take us a step back, what got you into real estate to begin with? And yeah, like what's, what were you doing, and then what interests you to get into this?
Yeah, so my backstory is I was in management consulting for 15 years. So I worked across 3 continents, lived off a plane every week. My wife and I, even though we were married 20 years, felt like we dated for 15 of those because we wouldn't see each other until the weekend.
Mm,
And so that was that was the game. And I worked with everybody from Disney theme parks to the Vatican, consulting them on different aspects of these mega businesses on merger or acquisition or
mm,
product innovation or cost cutting or changing their organizational structure, etc. So that was my competency. Then I had twin events, also known as twin babies, now 7-year-olds, which gave me a pause, and I wanted to be a better dad. So changed my lifestyle, joined a financial firm, and worked banker's hours, right? So a cushy job with an executive assistant, small team, allowed me to change a few thousand diapers and get enough bored on where I wanted to go, right? What's next? And that was a good phase of my life. But as I introspected, I figured out that I could take anything and scale it pretty effectively. I had a good knack for telling the right information in a synthesized manner, reading people, inspiring people, building a team. So that led me to a journey of creating an outsourcing company, which I scaled and exited within a year. Took those funds and some of friends and family funds to start a private lending company for real estate flippers here in Charlotte. Quickly figured out they make more money than my lending company. So I'm like, all right, I need to go into the flipping business. So 2019, I started and scaled a company to 10 employees, real estate wholesaling, flipping, was very successful at it. But wasn't enjoying it. It was distressed homeowners, those kinds of conversations that I didn't like. And the value that I was providing, even it didn't stick. So I hired a performance coach in 2020, 2 months before COVID. First conversation with the coach, he asked me to shut down my business and
oh,
find something new. So I was kicking myself in April of 2020 because I didn't have a revenue stream. And I listened to him. I shut it down. I let my employees go. But fortunately, I found passive investments through syndication, invested with 5 different operators, learned their playbook, partnered with my CEO, hired a director of acquisitions, and we started our journey in 2020. Kind of graduated from residential to commercial, and we bought, last half of 2020, we started with buying 3 assets, 400 units, and then expanded into the development arm and then the land arm, got in a third partner, Brandon, and bought the other business in 22. So that's kind of how it evolved
right.
accidentally.
Gotcha. Let's talk about partnership. I'm always very curious about that. I mean, you
Yeah.
sound like someone who, have the ability, the experience to run this whole thing yourself. What had you brought on your first partner, and then what had you brought on your second partner?
Yeah, so it was awareness of my limitation and what frustrates me, right? And so for me, it's, you've heard about the cliche term, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around with. For me, you're the sum of the 5 people who can help you build an empire. And for me, that's the goal that I have, is finding the 5 people who have the drive, the loyalty, the integrity, all of that, but have completely complementary skill sets to me, and want to work with me, because I'm not greedy. I'd rather play the long game. So to answer your question, my COO was all things operational. He's the maximizer. He cracks the whip. He's the bad cop. He doesn't mind being the bad cop, talking to the vendor and getting a discount, or property management, and all of that. While I'm the shake hands, kiss babies guy, right? I'm the good cop and building the relationships and all of that, which I love, and I'm really good at it. So that was the conversation: is, hey, you do what you do best, and I would do what I do best, and we take the same risk and the same reward, and I'm fine with that. Let's grow this company together. So that's how we started. And the third partner was, if you think about the triumvirate of how a business should be structured. It's acquisitions, growth, and operations, right? And so I had the growth part figured out, operations was figured out, it was the acquisitions, and Brandon is a magician when it comes to, buying land deals at pennies on the dollar, and it's unbelievable the business we are in with some of the niches we are in. So that's how Brandon got a seat at the table, because he's amazing at what he does, and I have no idea how to do it.
That's awesome. Yeah. When it comes to partnership, I know for me, like I hesitate a lot. Because for most of my business, I've always just been me. And I had a business where I took on a partner, and that partnership didn't work out. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
I have this thing around partnership now where I look a lot closer. Like it would take a lot for me to considering. Now, partnering on a specific project, even specific fund, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But partnering on your whole parent company it's a different level of partnership commitment that you have to have, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I say is, you date before you marry, and these are people that I knew for a long time, understood where they stood from a values perspective, what they needed in the next 5 years, because things evolve, before we kind of tied the knot from that perspective. But yeah, we
Right.
do partner with, you partner with operators like myself, if
Right.
you partner in 5 projects, at the end of the day, it's still a partnership. You're putting that trust and
Right.
alignment of values on the table when you partner. So
Right. All right. Awesome. So now let's talk about what had you decide to get into new construction, versus the value add that a lot of most syndicators do.
yeah, it's market cycle, right? So I'm a big proponent of studying the market cycle. First thing, we have a significant amount of advantage. First thing, we buy land in a very low cost basis, right? So 4 out of 5 deals, we'll buy the land, we'll rezone it to a high density, and we'll build a partnership with another developer to sell it off. But 1 out of 5, we'll get to keep. And so now, we've paid 20% of what would have been paid if we had bought it retailed and entitled and fully permitted, just because we went through the hard work. So that allows us that contingency. Second thing, just the macroeconomic environment. We have short-term headwinds, but long-term, I'm super bullish on multifamily, especially in the Carolinas. And if I draw a 3-hour circle around my home, it covers 8 markets, right? From Winston-Salem, Greensboro, Raleigh, Charleston, Wilmington, Asheville, Spartanburg, Greenville, you name it. There's just so much going on up and down the corridor in terms of the industrial stuff, globalization, to bringing stuff home from a manufacturing standpoint. All those hot pockets are there. So the fundamental need for housing is there. There's not enough new houses being built or enough new apartments being built. So that allows us that cushion that next 5-10 years in the long run, we're doing well. And then the third thing was, we knew how to generate some creative capital stacks that allows us, all things being equal, if any other developer was doing the other 2 things, investing in the Carolinas and buying raw land, and then going through the hard work of entitling it, then cost basis why our capital would be cheaper, and that's what we try to do. So that's the advantage for long term that we have.
Gotcha. Okay. And then so I love your strategy of buying it, getting it rezoned, sell off some, and then kind of like cherry pick the best ones that you didn't do development on. I love that.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I do some land too, so I do understand that. I have a question for you around entitlement.
Yeah.
The entitlement process, and I'm going through one right now that I'm considering, should I just go through the entitlement myself, or should I partner up with a developer to do the entitlement? Our plan is just to sell after the entitlement. So, but he wants a pretty good chunk to partner with him to do. I'm like, is it that difficult? Is it easy enough that I can just do the entitlement myself and don't have to partner with the developer and hire a civil engineer that will, take care of most of that stuff for me. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the entitlement, there's the science and the art, right? The science is whether the physical piece of land has certain amounts of due diligence, which your civil person can do, wetlands, topography, et cetera, et cetera. And I won't
Right.
go down the rabbit hole on, water, sewage, capacity, et cetera, that you would have a checklist on. That part you can do that yourself. The art part is the politics, right? By county, is the county okay with the growth in their macroeconomic development plan for the next 5 years? Is this in their land use plan? What does the neighborhood say? Because every meeting we go to, there'll be 5 to 25 people protesting. Not in my backyard. Everybody loves growth, but unless it's in their neighborhood, right? So then we are trashing their schools, and we're creating traffic, and
Yeah.
all that this similar conversations, which can fail a deal, right? So you got to be careful. And we have two people in our payroll that are specific with 60 plus years of experience in the Carolinas in understanding how to circumvent and how those conversations build the presentations, build the data points that allow us to be so successful at what we do. And so if it's a straightforward non-political environment for that specific county, you may be okay doing it yourself. But if the failure of just the politics involvement could harm you, then yes, you might be better off giving up that chunk.
Gotcha. Yeah, in my case, I don't think there's any politics. It's it's in a path of growth. All of the major builders are in that market now. D.R. Horton,
Yeah.
Lennar, Pulte, they're all in it. So yeah, the city is preparing for that growth. And so I think they're in a growth mindset right now. But real quickly, for the people who don't know what entitlement is, can you give us a definition of that?
Yeah, it's simply put a process whereby you're requesting that city or county to change the density of the land, right? So any land has some sort of zone on it, right? Whether it's raw land, agricultural land, single family used, R4 could be, you can build up to 4 houses in there. And you're buying the land. Before you buy the land, you're requesting through paperwork and site plans and civil engineering studies that if this land is okay, can I build 100 townhomes on it, where right now it's supposed to only get 4 houses. So thereby, now significantly increasing the value of the land if the city approves or the town approves that concept. And then you can have multiple exit strategies. That's the rezoning part. And then you can ask for permits and materials, and you can build the road and then give it to a developer. So there's multiple process to it. But in general, that's kind of what you're trying to do. Is I call it reverse value add, because you're not buying the asset until you've added value. So it's a sure shot once you buy it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. And just for extra clarification, the entitlement process is the process before you start putting in the utilities and the roads in.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's called horizontal development. And then
Correct.
building up is called vertical construction. So just for those of you
Yep.
who are not, who don't know development work, to give you some insights into that. All right, so now let's talk about creative financial stack. So so share with us your thought process into that, and what had you chose EB5, and then even acquiring a regional center, which is not normal. So one thing to get into EB5 is a whole different thing to actually acquire a regional center.
Yeah, so I mentioned a little bit of it, right? My goal is twofold. I mentioned one or part of it. One is to create cheaper capital stack for us, and EB5 is just one component. I could talk about other things that we are putting together that would allow us to do that. Overall, the deal metrics just become safer in this environment when you have a cheaper capital stack for whoever is investing with us. And so that was one goal. And the second goal was to create a flywheel of businesses, and this would continue, right? As as we would want to do less transactions, but want to get paid 6 ways for each transaction. So to that end, once we buy, having a title company and a GC arm or a supply chain arm, etc., just provides more control, more service-oriented elements. And so we'll continue exploring and buying those types of businesses. So to that end, we found these two gentlemen that owned what is the EB5 Regional Center, and I'll go into that. What does it mean? And they had it for a long period of time. Congress changed the law on this in last year, so it became a little more cost prohibitive, and they were getting tired. So classic business baby boomer story. And we got approached by one of the gentlemen, and we started talking for quite a few months to see if we can buy a stake into it. And we put up an LOI, got everything sorted out. It was actually it's a seller finance deal, so it's pretty amazing. But yeah, midway through, the gentleman we were speaking to passed away.
Oh man.
And so we had to go back to their family and the interests, and it wasn't an easy purchase. But we ended up buying 80% of the company, and then 20% the other gentleman stays on, which is great because that person had started the company 9 years back and has all the industry context and the knowledge. So they get an earn-out structure after a couple of years if they want to retire. In the meantime, folks like myself drink from the fire hose and learn about the nuances of the business.
Right. EB5s is generally and I think you even mentioned that cheap money, right? How
Yeah.
cheap are we talking about here? Like what's
So
yeah.
yeah, I'll tell you, I went to an immigration conference in Dubai, and we had, the Kushner family had a project there in Dubai, and they were paying investors 0.25% annually.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh Jesus. Wow.
Yeah, so it's that cheap. It could be, right? It's whatever you as a developer decide. We pay, because we are a small development shop, we pay comparatively the highest returns, I think, in the industry. But our projects total 7% net, 5% to investors. So
Wow,
it's
that's
still
good. That is high.
cheaper than debt right now.
Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, I think I was talking to an EB5 program, the company, probably a little bit over a year ago now. They were paying their investor, I think it was 2 or 3%.
Yep. Yeah, 1
Yeah.
to 3% standard. So
Okay.
again, depends on where you are in the capital stack. But yeah, some people only pay 0.5%. So the idea is, we can pivot towards that, right?
Right.
The EB5 program is, I don't know if you guys, most people might not have heard about it, but the EB program is an immigration-based US government program that's been there since the 80s. And the idea is, if you're on a visa in the United States, and you've done you're a legal immigrant, you've been compliant with US laws, or if you're a high net worth family outside of the United States, you invest a certain amount of money into the US government's programs that with private developers, and that allows you at some point or a few years time to apply for or get a green card or immigration, right? So it's a very, very similar program, has been there for pretty much all countries. Canada has it, Portugal's program is pretty popular. UK, United Kingdom's program is pretty popular. Dubai has a golden visa. Spain has a golden visa. Everybody does it. This is the US government version of it. So the advantage, it's called EB5. And so the advantage of EB5, there's EB1, EB2, other programs, right? Most people who are here in the US, working as tech executives or doctors or otherwise, they come on a job dependency. So the employers pulling them from their country and say, we need more talent like you. You're here for 10, 15 years. It's, then you get to, based on the employer's wishes, you get to apply for immigration and have a path to immigration. This one, it's a self thing. So if you have the money, you and your whole family can apply for immigration process by self-funding this program and finding someone as a developer to kind of take that money and do that. So that's the advantage. The U.S. government gets a lot of funding inflows of dollars in the economy. So that's the U.S. government win. Obviously, the families who are investing, and now it's $800,000 per application. So, one family, it's $800,000 raised at a time, and so you have 10 people, and now you've got 8 million at cheap capital. And so the family gets the incentive. They're not investing for the 18 IRR or anything of that sort. They want to
Right.
invest in a project that can preserve their capital, because they have to sign that it's a PPM, just like any other PPM. They have to sign that their money is entirely at risk throughout the cycle. And so they can lose their money technically, completely, not even get a return. So it's the safety of the funds and the safety of the process is their primary goal. And as developers ourselves, we get, cheap capital that sits in our stack as mezzanine
Right.
debt or pref equity or whatever the case may be. It allows us to bring our weighted average cost of capital down, bring more capital to the investors and ourselves.
Gotcha. All right. So share with us how do normal syndicators like us take advantage of the EB-5 program? Do we all have to go out there and buy a regional center?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great question, right? So the way it works, and I'll go a little bit down the rabbit hole because there are nuances to this. First of all, you have to find it's only for construction projects. It's not mostly for existing projects. So you have to be in the development space, or if there's a business that you're taking down, it's generating negative income, and then you're building it up. The Congress and the U.S. government wants money put in a certain section and certain places where they feel that growth is needed, right? So that's the program. You can't buy existing acquisitions from it. So if you're a construction developer like ourselves, you can either go directly first. If you have like an opportunity zone land, you have to find EB-5 zoned land and figure out whether it's EB-5 zoned or not. And there are websites allow you to do that pretty quickly. Once you have that piece of land, now you can either go directly to an investor or family in Latin America or Asia or wherever you're going, or even the US if they are on different visa, and say, you can partner with us. But then there is a constraint where you have to prove that you created 10 W-2 jobs per application that you get it. So it's great if it's a hotel or a quick service restaurant where you can hire 20, 30 people at a pop to prove some of those things. So a lot of people, direct developers, do those kinds of partnerships with EB-5 investors for those projects. But if you are in multifamily development like ourselves, then you're not creating 10 jobs or let alone 100 jobs for 10 investors, right? So that's where the magic of what we bought comes into place. And there are about 300 regional centers in the US. You can partner with any one of them. If they are open to partnerships, they typically work with the big dogs, right? Big developers building the high rises in Miami or California. That's, you're looking at the $300-400 million projects. But you can technically partner with them. The advantage of going through a regional center is the regional center doesn't have to prove the 10 W-2 jobs per investor. They run a model that says we created the direct jobs, but we also created indirect jobs, which is, in theory, if my construction worker now goes to McDonald's nearby and eats, I, as a regional center head, I can count the 20 jobs of McDonald's into the equation of job creation in theory, very simplistically putting. So regional center gets way more jobs for the same project than a direct developer gets. And that's why you go through a regional center. The regional center also acts as a fund and has third-party audit and compliance. So people who are investors who typically could be from a foreign land are now trusting you to give $800,000 plus fees and all those things. Let's say $900,000 they're investing. They need to trust someone to do that job right and make sure they're not losing their shirt. So it's easier to go with the regional center and do that. So I hope that helped.
Dude, that's amazing explanation. So are you saying then I can do this without a regional center?
You can, absolutely. If you have an EB5 qualified land and a project that generates enough jobs in the construction world, then yeah, you can build anything. You can build
Gotcha.
a spa, you can build roads, there's all kinds of things allowed in the construction realm for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've always thought you had to go through a regional center, so that's good to know. So number two, then with a regional center, then you can do syndications and not have as many W-2 employees. Is that correct?
Yeah, so with a regional center, let's say I'm building a $40 million apartment building, right? Now I've got, typically I would raise 15 to 18 million in common equity. And the rest is senior debt, right? That's kind of my two stacks that I have. In our case, we'll raise the 60 million or 60% in senior debt. We'll probably get 5 to 10 million of EB5 investment because there's no upside to them. They just get a fixed return for their money invested for a few years. So, we're paying 5%, 7%, whatever, or 4%, whatever we do per project, we can decide. And then we have our own land equity. Let's say we bought a land for 400,000, but the appraisal value now, because we rezoned and permitted, it's $2.5 million. So I have, instead of raising 16, 18 million, now my non-EB5 PPM only raises 3 to 5 million, right? So that makes our projects very lucrative or safer, depending on how we structure it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, in theory, I could raise the entire 40 million if I had enough jobs created with EB5 money. I don't even need senior debt.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So as long as the regional, since you're partnering with a regional center, as long as the regional center can justify that requirements, then
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. And then I heard, so like the amount, the minimum amount that each investor has to invest in depends on where the job creation site is, right? So like if it's in a smaller town, I heard, is that 800,000? Is that the lowest, or?
Yeah, 800,000 exact in different types of either high unemployment sites are catered to regional center, or rural sites, or if you're building infrastructure projects. Those are the three categories. So we work with high unemployment and rural projects. So it's like an opportunity zone qualification, right? You guys have heard about opportunity zone. This is kind of like that. You can see whether a site is EB5 qualified or not for free.
Right. Yeah. Because I think here in Houston, like if for an EB5 investor to invest in Houston, I think the minimum is $1.5 million, I think. Does that sound too high?
That's too high.
That's too high. Okay.
Yeah, that's too high. That's something's going on there.
Okay.
But
gotcha.
the TLDR, two things. One is, this, if you have friends and family in a place where they're looking for permanent residency and are good model citizens of US in the terms of legal aspect, then this is one route that one should consider. If you're a developer or partnering with developers, a syndicator, this brings a good capital stack to the table, and makes the opportunity much more lucrative or safer depending on where you sit in the capital stack from your fund's perspective. So those are the two things to get out. I know this can go out over some folks' head, and I think our site is posted there, eb5help.com,
Yeah.
kind of outline the whole process and timeline. And there's just, it took me 6 months to learn the entire nuances of, because this is a Congress-led program, all the nuances of what works, what doesn't work, what's the advantage, disadvantage, all those things I can go on and on about.
Right. Yep. And yeah, before, when I first heard about the EB-5 program, I've always thought that and people still do this. They go to the country that they want to raise money from. They do presentations over there to recruit those people here. And then more recently, and I think it was in talking with you and another individual, that I learned there's a ton of people raising money from, and you touch on this a little bit. I want to expand on it. Is from people who are already living here under different visa, whether it's work visa, student visa, and recruiting them to become investors, or at least their families, if it's a student case, to invest here. So how much, I'm curious as to like how much of your investors are already here in the US in percentage versus like they're overseas?
Yeah, most of the folks that we've done historically, or this company has partnered with historically, has been overseas.
Okay.
We are now looking at, there's a special right now, let's say, recession hits, right? At some point, whether it's mild or rough, at some point the employment numbers would go down, right? So unemployment would tick up. So that's when the Fed would stop macroeconomically, right? So again, I'm a student of market cycle. So for that, there are tech executives and folks who are really been here for 15 years, have their kids here, they own a house, they're in limbo. They've applied for immigration through another visa category, but they're in limbo because of just how long it takes, and the way a U.S. immigration system works. And this allows an alternative fast track path for them, because they might have flipped a house and they have 800,000, or they can get a loan or a HELOC or a gift, or however they generate that much amount of money. Now you have a much more secured path, and they get other advantages within a few months that allows them to change jobs or things like that. So right now, if you get fired on one of those visa categories, as an employee, within 60 days, it doesn't matter if you lived here for 15 years and never had even a parking ticket. In 60 days, you get kicked out of the country, and you and your family have to leave and sell your house if you didn't find another job, right? So that all those things that people get tensed about as a family that you may or may not be aware of, all that goes away if you have the right fast-tracked immigration process. So that's where we're having more conversations with people here and saying, this could be a much more urgent thing if you're thinking about it.
Right. That's good. Yeah. I know of a syndicator here in Houston. He is running a ton of Facebook ads right now targeting that crowd.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Oh my
That's
yeah.
how it could be.
Yeah,
And you don't need many people, right? I mean, maybe 100 people is 80 million. Think about that.
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
I like that. Yeah. And I know he also has gotten into new development and stuff as well. So I'm assuming that's what he's using that for.
Correct.
Yeah. And he comes from the tech space, so I'm sure he has tons of connections in the tech world.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really awesome. All right, so let's talk about the market. You, like you mentioned, you're a big macroeconomics guy. So where are you seeing this market's going? Other than creative capital stack, like how else can we position ourselves to take advantage of this market?
Yeah, I like many people. I broke my crystal ball in 2008. So I don't know. There's just so many things happening, right? Headwinds, and when I'm quite concerned with regional banks, right? Debt, especially for construction projects, is very very challenging right now, and that's why EB5 helps us. We have to get creative. Our banking relationships, our footprint helps us, because we are, only Carolinas based. We're not trying to buy anything in Texas or the next big area or any place. No shiny objects. We're trying to stay in our lane. We're buying less of existing multifamily because we believe, it's flatline price, and after doing 3-4 years of work, if we cannot generate enough returns for our investors and ourselves, then it's an opportunity cost. So and a lot of people are still buying, and they found something that we can't. But we're just maximizing our time into what we can do to play the longer game, because we know 5 to 8 years from now things would be different, right? Interest rates would come down at some point. We don't know when. And the need for housing has exacerbated because of all these macroeconomic factors that needs to be fulfilled still in key areas where migratory patterns are big. And so one of them being the Carolinas. So that's the game we want to play, and we want to be in businesses that we can pace, right? If tomorrow a land site that we wanted to build, now we're like, that's not the right time to build it. If we have put in the road and done the horizontal, we can still sell it off, and we'll make a tremendous amount of margin and profit from that, by doing that. So we have different exit strategies because we can pace our development process and have a pipeline of development. So that's where we're sticking towards. And so what I would suggest to the group is, play with caution, right? I get people want to do syndication deals. I get people want to partner in capital, but be cautioned that 2015 to 2021, the environment was completely different. Anything that you bought, you could make money on. Now it's all about the right operations, right development process, right cost of capital. So there's much more where you can have a mediocre deal in your hand, or lose your shirt, right? And you just want to be careful about that.
Yeah, good advice for sure. All right. So share with us, what are some of the favorite tools that you use in your business?
Oh man, we're implementing Monday for the most part for our L10 meetings and rocks, and just running our business as EOS. We've experimented with a couple of acquisition tools, but that hasn't brought fruition yet. And then we use InvestNext, and a combination of InvestNext and ActiveCampaign for our CRM system, our drip. If you go to sageequity.com and put in your name as our investor database, we have about 750 investors with us, that are in that database. And that, then you'll get the next 12 emails, the drip campaign explaining what syndications are and all that lovely stuff. So that is stuff that we built on ActiveCampaign. We love it. We love the effectiveness of it, and saved me quite a few hundred calls, which I used to do personally, right? Any person like, what do you guys do? Well, this is what we do. And now we have that machine of drip campaigns that kind of explains things. But yeah, that's pretty much it from our side.
That's awesome. All right. For the folks that want to reach out to you, connect with you, perhaps, if they're in the Carolina area, use your EB5 service, where would you like to send them?
Yeah, you can email us, Hemal@sageequity.com. Go to our website, register in the investor database. You'll stay appraised on all the things we're doing. You'll be amazed at some of the land development projects that we do. And but we're quieter. We're not. We love things to learn from Tim are how to be on social media much more effectively. We're not doing that. But yeah, that's the best way of getting in touch with us.
Awesome. All right. So before we wrap up today, if you were to start all over again, okay, brand new all over again, considering this market right now, is there anything you would do differently, or what would you do, or anything you would do differently than how you got started in this business?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I think I would have reversed our acquisitions. I would have started my land development company first.
Oh,
I would
wow.
probably be sitting on 5,000 acres of land at this stage, and that would have been the game changer.
Wow. 5,000 acres. I mean, now you're talking about rural now, right? You're talking about like, doing almost like estates type of community, not so much.
Yeah, subdividing them, building single family lots. We've done a lot of
Mhm.
those.
Okay.
And every one of them has been amazing. So we'd love to do more and
Awesome.
more of that.
I need a offline here. I need to pick your brain on the deal that I'm working on. DR
Yeah,
Horton, Pulte, they all want it, but they want lot ready, like they want shovel ready. It's like I
yeah,
don't want to go through the development. I just want to sell the entitlement. So
yeah, yeah. Happy to help out.
thank you so much,
That's okay.
Hemal, for doing this interview with me. I really appreciate you and appreciate all the awesome knowledge you share.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. And thanks for
Awesome.
taking the time, guys, to listen to me.
Awesome.